In this lesson, we're going to learn how to control our annotation symbology inside of our Revit title blocks. To get to those title blocks, we need to make sure that we open up our template and then find the title blocks inside of it. In this case, I'm inside of the default template. I'm going to move over here to the side, and I'm going to expand out the word families from underneath the project browser. From here, make sure the annotation symbols is expanded out by clicking on the plus, move down, and find E1 30 by 42 horizontal. This is one of the title block families that is loaded into this Revit project by default. Now, if we highlight on that, right click, and then click on the edit button, this will bring up the family editor and we'll see that Revit title block. Now, this is going to be just like any of your own title blocks that you may have created. We can see here that it has lines. If we zoom in by using the wheel on our mouse, we can see individual pieces of text, as well as what's called labels, which is information that can be dynamically adjusted based on your project information. Now, all of this has different settings associated with it to make the fonts look the way that they do, the different line weights look the way that they should. And in this environment, it's actually a little bit different than it is inside of a project environment. So I want to point out where each of these locations are where you can change this information. The first thing I want to show is underneath the Create tab here, over to the right-hand side, we have labels and text, and that's what's making up the text and labels we have here on the screen. To change the information associated with the different labels and text, there's a really easy to miss arrow right here next to the word text. If you click the Text Types button, this will bring up the type properties for all the different fonts that are embedded into this title block. Now, I'm being very specific about this. These are from your title block, not necessarily from your project. From here, we can see that this font is currently a 1/4-inch font. The text is actually an Arial font, and if you want to replace that with any other kind of Windows font, you can just click inside of the box here. Once it highlights, you'll see a down arrow, and if you click on the down arrow, you'll be able to scroll up and down and pick from any kind of standard Windows font. From there, you can change the text size, and in this case, we can see it's 1/4-inch, which corresponds with the name of this font. This is also where you can tell that font to be bold or italic or underlined. And Revit doesn't have a fit for the text, so what you need to do from time to time is maybe adjust the width of this by adjusting the width factor of the text from underneath this dialog box here. I'm going to click on OK. So if you want to change the default properties of any of the text inside of a Revit title block, remember you can do that from underneath Create, and then this little arrow next to the word text. The next place to know about are these individual lines. And these lines were drawn by clicking on line, and then someone picked off of this pull-down list here, which is called subcategory, what kind of line type they wanted to use inside of this area. Now, technically, there's two different ways where we can set these different properties up inside of here. The first place that we can take a look at is underneath the Manage tab, Additional Settings, and through here, this is where we have our different line styles, line weights, and line patterns that can be set up. In this instance, I'm going to click on the line styles. If I expand this out by clicking on the little plus, here we can see every line style that might be related to this title block, as well as the default settings for how these should print or the thicknesses for these individual lines. From here, I'm going to click on OK. Now, there is another spot where this information shows up. This is the area where I like to create these different kinds of lines that are available to us. And that's in the visibility graphics. So you can either type the letter V twice on the keyboard, or typically you can go in here to Properties and try to find wherever your visibility graphics were. But you'll notice that by selecting on Properties, you're not seeing the option to click on anything related to the visibility graphics. In fact, if you come up here to the top of the screen and you start clicking on the different tabs, you're going to probably struggle to find the Visibility Graphics button. It's actually going to be underneath the View tab right here and Visibility Graphics here. Here we have model categories, and we can see this is all blank. There are no view-specific settings whenever you're working inside of a Revit title block family. So, where you can manipulate this and add different lines to it is underneath the Object Styles button right here. And here's where we have all of our different kinds of lines that are specific to title block families. This is the reason why I like to create them from this area. We just get a list of those lines that are going to be showing up inside of a title block. Now, if we wanted to add another line thickness, another line type to this list, we could. You can come down here to where it has modify subcategories and click on new. Give it a name. And also you see it says subcategory of. In this case, I like to change this to be title blocks instead of generic annotations. If we pick generic annotations instead, it would then show up underneath generic annotations up here instead of underneath the word title block. You can then type in whatever makes sense for this. I'm going to call this thick line, but pick something that everybody will be able to recognize as a name. I'll click on OK to that. From here, you can see that we can type in a number, we can type in a color, we can pick a line pattern off of the list. And by doing this, then clicking on OK and OK to get on out, it means that the next time that we want to create a new line, we can do that by create line and then find, in this case, thick line off of the list and start drawing here inside of our project environment. So the key things to remember whenever we're dealing with our annotation settings inside of a title block family is this. The first thing is that if we want to change the properties of any of the pieces of text so that it displays appropriately, make sure to come underneath the Create tab, find the word text, and then click this arrow right here, and then adjust the text properties from here. If you want to do this for a different style, you can click this little pull-down menu here, pick the appropriate one. You'll see the information update here, and then you can type in how you'd actually like it to display. If you want to create a new one from scratch, you can do that too by clicking here on Duplicate, giving it a new name, clicking on OK, and then typing in the information that you want. If we want to adjust the information related to the individual lines, we can do that as well. In fact, I advise doing that through the visibility graphics, which you can find underneath the View and Visibility Graphics, or just typing the letter V twice, and then going in the object styles, and then setting up your individual lines through the Modify Subcategories box and selecting on New.